Hi, Kevin Wright here, and welcome to another week's property finance tip. What are we going to be talking about this week? We're going to be talking about delayed completion. So that's exchanging contracts and not doing the standard thing of completing 4 weeks or 28 days later, but extending that over to a longer period. So if you want to find out more about how delayed completion can work and the advantages it can give you when you're putting together property deals and trying to be more creative about it, keep watching. Okay, so delayed completion. It's a fairly simple concept, really, that you don't complete in the normal time frame of 28 days or 4 weeks. You extend it, and you can extend it by different periods. Now, in some instances, people delay the completion for 5-10 years, something like that. But this is that's not the type we're going to be talking about. We're going to talk smaller time frames, so probably something around 6 to, let's say, 20 weeks typically. And what's going to determine the length of the delayed completion is the time it would take you to do the refurb that's required on the property. So you'd only use delayed completion as a strategy if you had a property that you could improve and add value to. So the starting point for it is that it needs work. Now, it could be that it needs a bit more work than would be allowed for mortgage purposes. So in other words, it could be unmortgageable to start with. So that could be one thing, but maybe you just need to do some essential work to make it mortgageable. That's not going to cost you, a lot of money or add a lot of value. So, for example, if the guttering's leaking and the rainwater is washing down the outside of the house and causing damp, that could be a reason why you couldn't get a mortgage. But if you could just get in there with the owner's permission, of course, if you could get in there and just fix the guttering for a few hundred or or a few £1,000 if it was a bit more serious, or something like some tiles missing on the roof, that sort of thing. This sort of thing. So that would be the thing that you would probably try and do, and then get a mortgage on the to purchase it with. So that could be a reason for doing delayed completion. I'm going to go through the process a bit more, the steps you need to take as we go through this video, but I'm going to focus on another area where a more significant refurb would be needed, and one which would add significantly to the value. So you're not going to put a few hundred or a few £1,000 on the value. You could be putting 10 plus or tens of thousands of pounds to the value, and how you would use delayed completion as a way to put less money in a deal. So that's the area we're going to focus on. Okay, so delayed completion. It's literally you exchange contracts and then you get into the property and do whatever work is needed, and then you complete. So if you're going to do that, there's 3 things that you're going to need to get the current owner's permission on. And the first thing is to enter the property. So you have to get their permission to enter the property between exchange and completion. Now, you have to do that because it's not normal. Normally you don't get access to the property until you complete the purchase. So this is doing what's not normal. So you have to get the owner's permission to enter. Now, to be able to enter the property, you've got the second thing, which is you need to have the keys. So you need to get the keys and get the permission to enter the property. And the third thing, you mustn't forget the third thing is that you must get the owner's permission to carry out whatever extent of work you plan to do. And that's really important. So 3 things: get the keys, get permission to enter, permission to do the work. And that's all handled between the solicitors in advance of exchange of contracts, and it's written into the contracts that are exchanged. And you'd also agree how much you want to delay the completion by. Now, if you've looked at the property, you'll know the extent of the work that needs doing. So you'll know whether it's a 3-week job, a 6-week job, or 12-week job, or whatever. Now, it's always good to add probably at least 2 and probably 4 weeks contingency to that for any hiccups or delays that you hadn't foreseen. So that's the way that you would structure a delayed completion. Now, once you've done whatever work it's done, you've now got to finance the completion. If it's just, as I said originally, some minor retention work that's added, £1,000, £2,000 to the value, then you would just get a mortgage and arrange the mortgage in the normal way. So, and of course, you wouldn't wait until you'd done the work to do that. You'd start that before you actually exchanged contracts. So now let's look at if you're adding more significant value. Now, if you're adding, let's say, I don't know, £25,000 to the, and maybe even more, to the value of the property. Now, it comes an issue about how mortgage lenders value properties when you're buying them. So, and you might have seen this in one of my other videos on this channel, but mortgage lenders have a thing, and their valuers at the point of purchase always lend on the lower of the value or the purchase price. So if your refurb has really jacked up the value, by tens of thousands of pounds, if you use a mortgage to purchase the property, that's going to be completely ignored, because lenders lend on the lower of the purchase price or the value, and the purchase price is going to be lower than the value. So all that money you've created in there just sits in the property, and so then you've got to put a 25% deposit on the purchase price. So you've got a lump of money you spend on the refurb, the value you've created, and your deposit has all got to sit in the property. So that's not particularly cost-efficient use of your money. So is there another way? Well, yes, there is. If you've seen my video, the 5 types of bridging, you'll know one of those 5 types is a done-up value bridge, and that's what we would use here. So a done-up value bridge is used specifically when you've done the refurb between exchange and completion, and the bridger's valuer would then go out and value the property at what they see, the price that they see, which is not the purchase price but the value. So then they would lend you typically 70%. I mean, it does vary slightly with each deal, but typically they lend you 70% of the uplifted value. Now, if you've added enough value, that 70% of the value is going to be fairly close, if not above the purchase price. So one of the advantages of delayed completion bridging is that you eliminate to a large degree the need for a deposit. Now, I'll stress that it's not a no money down deal, because you've had to put a chunk of money in on the refurb, and you could have spent £15,000-20,000 or even more on the refurb. So then you get your done up value bridge, and once you own the property, then you can look to refinance the property and put it on a mortgage, unless you're going to sell it, of course, because it works as a flip strategy as well as a buy and hold strategy. Now, if you're going to buy and hold, there are mortgage lenders that don't make you wait for 6 months. If you wait for 6 months, you'll have a fuller choice of lenders, but then you're spending longer on the bridging loan, so you have to weigh up the balance between the two, and a good broker would help you to do that. So, whether you choose to hang around for 6 months and get a wider choice of lenders, or pay a slightly higher rate and get off the bridge quicker, that's your choice. Now, you might be saying, hang on a minute, that sounds risky to me, that I'm putting money into a property that I don't yet own. Yes, that's true, but one of the ways you protect yourself is to exchange contracts. Now, that's a legally binding document, and if the seller were to happen to pull out, then they would have to pay you the forfeiture clause that's in that contract, which is 10% of the purchase price plus your costs. So that acts as a disincentive to the seller not completing. So, you know, now some people say, oh, we can do this on an option agreement. Yes, you can. I would never suggest it or recommend it for the simple reason that an option agreement is a weaker legal document than an exchange of contracts. Now, I don't profess to know the law. I'm not qualified as a solicitor, but solicitors have told me that that's the case, that an exchange of contracts is a more robust legal document. And, you know, why would you deliberately and knowingly put something that's weaker in its place? You wouldn't. So so this is a great way to get money out of a deal, recycling your cash fast. And you know I'm all about recycling your cash. So it really has to be a vacant property, so you can't really do it if there's tenants or the owners live in there. So vacant properties are the thing you need to look for. And, you know, let's be honest about it, you're not always going to get sellers to agree to this, or the seller's solicitor. But if you don't ask, you don't get. So if you don't suggest it, the seller's certainly not going to suggest it, because it's not something that they would be typically familiar with. So, you know, like most things, if you've got an opportunity to be more creative, save yourself money, why not do it? But also mitigate your risks, lower your risks at the same time. So that's delayed completion. Now, I've given you a quick overview in a few minutes there, but it's actually one of the modules on my full training program, the Ninja Investor program. Now, so there we are. That's this week's video. It's delayed completion bridging. And if you've liked that, click that subscribe button and that little bell thingy to get your pinging when I release a new video. And if you've enjoyed this, go and see what else you can look at. There's a couple of video suggestions that are going to follow me when I finish talking, so go and have a browse around those and see what else you like. I've got, you know, 40-50 videos on the channel now, so have a browse around there and see what else you can find that's of interest. And I'll see you next week.